from his studios in New York, it's time for Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Here's your host, Dan Tortora.
Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The last couple of weeks have been tough with my throat, strained myself, and you can strain it. Your throat has muscles, and you can strain it, and I've realized you could. I sing, and I also broadcast, and the feeling of straining it is not great. So bear with me today. I may sound a little bit mellow. Maybe I'll come over here like Barry White and just make it real nice in the morning for everybody. But so I'm happy to be here with you this morning, and I'm really excited. Thursday show, Papa Joe's Picks, college football talk with Papa J. And then around 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time, Katie Kolinsky is going to join the show with Coaching with Class. And then in the second hour of the show, we're going to do the Fantasy Football Power Hour like we always do, with my guy Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub as well as the Pen and Trophy Center. So that's all coming up in the second hour of the show. It is now time to get the man on the show. Like I said, strained my vocal cords, I believe, but I'm going to do my best with this one. I'm going to say good morning to Papa Joe. It's not bad. I still got it. I said I'm gonna Barry White this morning, Papa Joe, because I'm mellow. So I said I might just come in and just give it to the people like this. Just keep it really low. How are we doing, Papa J?
That's good. Got beat up a little bit yesterday, but I'm okay. Good for the long run.
So Papa J's doing good. You got beat up a little bit, but you're doing okay. What college football teams? Since we love to talk college football, what teams, in your opinion, are getting beat up a little bit more than you thought they would?
Well, that's a good question. I think Texas A&M had a good shot at the beginning of the year of being good, and frankly, they're still in it. I don't know how these guys figure this, the West Division of the SEC, but they're still in it. Ohio State, with their miserable loss last week to Purdue, doesn't look like they belong anywhere after that game. I can't figure that one at all. Penn State's still hovering around there, Michigan. Those three teams, Wisconsin, looked miserable too, but came back strong. You got Florida, Georgia. One of those teams looked like they're going to take the SEC East. Other than that, it seems like we're dealing with the same teams every year that deserve to get into the playoff. There are some exceptions. The people at Notre Dame think they should be involved in this. I don't know about that. And then you got the Power Five. You got some of the schools there, UCF, South Florida, the Pac 10 or 12, whatever they call themselves on the West Coast. I'm not sure. You got some good teams out there. It's going to filter down in the next couple of weeks. But I think the biggest games this week to talk about are two that really, really are going to affect everyone's thoughts and voting rights. Obviously, the first one is Florida, Georgia, billed as the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Mm-hmm. And that is the truth, because I've attended many of them, even though I don't drink anymore. But it's just fun to be around. It's a riot. One half of the stadium, the old Jacksonville Gator Bowl, one half of the stadium's sea ruby red. The other side is sea blue. So it's kind of fun to go there. And the next game that I think we need to discuss is Clemson and Florida State. This game has the potential to really screw things up. At the beginning of the year, everyone laid down and said, yeah, well, Clemson's going to roll right through, and they beat NC State last week very handily. But FSU's coming on. I'm not an FSU guy because I can't be a Gator and an FSU Seminole. So with that being said, this is a very, very dangerous game for Clemson. It could throw a monkey wrench into a whole bunch of things. FSU's not going anywhere this year. They may be able to get a bowl. If they win this Saturday, they're certainly going to get a bowl. They should be able to win one or two games for the rest of the year, even though they say they have a tough schedule. But those two games right there, Florida, Georgia, and FSU, Clemson, we need to discuss a little bit more.
So let's start with that. Speaking here with Papa Joe in Papa Joe's Picks College Football Talk every Thursday morning to start off Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You are proudly listening on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, and you're also listening to that live feed embedded on wakeupcalldt.com. I appreciate y'all very much. Florida is ranked 9th in the country. Georgia is 7th. You want to spend some more time talking about these, so let's do this. This game is going to be played at the TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville, the home of the Jaguars. And dare I say it, Papa Joe, it'll be a better game played there by Florida, Georgia than Jacksonville has played in a while.
Oh, Jacksonville's looks awful, Daniel. I feel for the team. They got some inner turmoil too. You got some guys near that, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that want to be leaders and they want to talk and they want to impose their will on the rest of the team. But some of the kids on the defensive side of the ball are not playing up to par. But that can be blamed on the offense because the offense isn't moving the ball. And if you don't move the ball and don't get first downs and move the chains, you got to come off the field and the defense has got to get back on the field. And frankly, by the middle of the fourth quarter, the guys are spent. So, yeah, I think the Florida-Georgia game is going to be a little bit more entertaining.
And so this Florida-Georgia game, let's start off with the Florida Gators. Dan Mullen is in his first year with the team. He obviously has worked to build this team up after they had fallen down a bit. What have you seen from Florida? Like you said, you're a Gator through and through. That's where you went. That's your connection. So what have you seen from the Gators so far?
Well, I've seen a lot more consistency lately as opposed to the beginning of the year. Coach Mullen had to come in and install his type of coaching leadership and his way of moving the football, moving the chains, and he's a quarterback guru guy, kind of like, he's really tutored and mentored a lot of good quarterbacks, including Dak Prescott, that's playing right now for the Cowboys. He has improved Felipe Franks immeasurably. Franks seems comfortable in the pocket. He's making good reads. He's always had a huge arm. He can throw the ball standstill 70 yards. I mean, he's a beast with the football. But, he's got to be able to make the soft passes too, the downs and outs. He can make any throw in the field. I think Coach Mullen has improved him, and therefore the Gators' chances. Outside of that, they have a strong running attack. They got 3 wide receivers they can count on to catch the ball. These are all underclassmen too. Phillips is a redshirt sophomore. I mean, these guys are all freshmen and sophomores, which is why Florida only has 15 commitments for next year. He's got a whole bunch of youngins on the team. But Coach Mullins is an educator. He's a teacher first, and he's a molder of men. We realize that from the 4 years he spent with the Florida Gators back in the late 90s with Tim Tebow and his crew. So I look for the consistency to maintain. I do believe they're going to be overmatched, but anyway, that's a concise recap of the Gators.
And the Gators have only lost one game this season. They lost by 11 to Kentucky. Outside of that, they started off the season by taking down Charleston Southern. They also defeated Colorado State, at Tennessee, at Mississippi State when Dan Mullen went back to the team that he was coaching. They defeated LSU when LSU was ranked 5th in the country, and they just won at Vanderbilt. The interesting story is the fact that the only loss for Florida is to Kentucky, and Kentucky has the exact same record as Florida in the SEC, 4-1, and the same overall record at 6-1. So just to speak on that a little bit, that Florida is snake eyes with Kentucky. The tiebreaker is the game that they lost to them. Just the irony of that, and this is how sports seems to almost always go, is that, here are two teams that are tied in every way, shape, or form, but head-to-head, Kentucky has the advantage. Just what you think about that.
Well, if both teams go through the rest of the year, don't lose another game, it looks like Kentucky would edge out Florida for that. The pundits won't like that. The association won't like. Nobody will like that. They would want Florida, a huge money-making university, in the Final Four. But going back to that game, Kentucky controlled both lines of scrimmages and pushed the Gators all over the place. It's not happening now. Although this Georgia coming up is rough and tough, but they didn't get pushed around by LSU. And if you don't get pushed around by LSU, I think you solved your problems on the offensive and defensive lines. So I do think that Kentucky's going to trip up. I don't think that they're that good of a team. They certainly don't have the offensive power that Florida does, nor the defensive power that Florida or Georgia has. Kentucky will probably lose, and it's going to come down to Florida, Georgia.
So when we look at where Florida is right now, you describe this team, and on the other side of it, they're going to have to play Georgia. Where are they in this matchup? To speak on the other side of it, the Georgia Bulldogs. The Bulldogs, as of right now in their season, they have only lost most recently to LSU. It seems like the road's going through LSU inside of the SEC as far as the other team to make it besides Alabama in the college football playoff. You either beat LSU or you fall to them, but all these teams are packed really tightly. LSU is right behind Alabama. They're 7-1. Alabama's 8-0. They're 4-1 in the conference. Alabama's 5-0 on the west side. And Georgia just lost to them by 20 points in Louisiana. Very uncharacteristic of Georgia, who defeated Austin Peay, South Carolina, Middle Tennessee, Missouri, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. So just what you think about where Georgia's at right now, and if this is a dangerous game for Florida, because Georgia not only was second in the country ranked and heading toward the college football playoff, but now they have a lot to prove, and they're trying to climb up the mountain. So how scary can this game be?
To me, this is a pick'em game. A lot of people are picking Florida. A lot of people are picking Georgia. It's a pick'em game. Certainly, if Florida beats Georgia, then they're going to roll right into the SEC East title and play Alabama, presumably Alabama. Although, in saying that, Georgia is a better team. They're structurally better suited for the run game. They have huge offensive linemen. They control both line of scrimmage very well too. I think that Georgia's overall talent, is a little bit more than Florida. It pains me to say this, but I don't see Florida winning this game. I think that Georgia, Kirby Smart will come up with a good game plan to stymie some of the young kids that Florida has, maybe ruffle the feathers of Felipe Franks a little bit. They got a good quarterback in Fromm who throws the ball just like Frank's all over the place, although he's had a few rough spots. Yeah, I read recently where they're going to stick with Fromm for as long as they can before they bring in their number one draft pick from the ranks. But Georgia is tough. They're tough. I think they're going to ride their wave a little bit more than the Gators can. I think that Florida I don't think they just match up for it unless Coach Mullen has something up his sleeve, which he usually does, a fake punt or something like this, He'll have something. But, when you look at games like this, after the first couple of series, if you see who's controlling the line of scrimmage, both offense and defense, it's going to be a long day for the other team that's not being prepared for this. So, if you see some heads clanging around and Florida laying on the ground and Georgia running all over people, you're going to see that Georgia probably will control the line of scrimmage in this game and probably win the game, and that pains me to say that.
And speaking here with Papa Joe inside of Papa Joe's Picks College Football Talk on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Papa J, if Florida is to win this game, though, they would be 7-1, and they would have had defeated Georgia and LSU, two teams that have been ranked in the top 4. If that does happen, does Florida deserve to jump into the top 4?
I think they should, but they have some games left to play and a few good ones. South Carolina is always a tough game for Florida, and you got FSU. Even though FSU is not in this equation for the Florida being the East Coast or the East Division champion. if Florida continues playing the way they can, and if somehow they upset Georgia this week and roll through South Carolina, I think they got a cupcake in there too for homecoming. And if they beat FSU, certainly they should be. But if they lose to FSU, they're going to have 2 losses, and I don't know if they got 2 losses and they've already won the SEC East, and they play presumably Alabama and beat Alabama, then they're certainly going to be in the conversation, even though with 2 losses.
Did you believe that, going into the season with Dan Mullen's first season and all the issues with with Will Muschamp there and everything like that, did you have the inkling at all that Dan Mullen was going to lead the Gators to be in a place right now where they were in the conversation?
Listen, we saw him for 4 years as an offensive coordinator. He did marvels with the personnel at Florida. And certainly, you have to understand, and the rest of the country does too, that the state of Florida, Georgia, surrounding Alabama, it's a hotbed for recruits. And when you recruit better players at these big schools and bring in a coach that knows what he's doing, yeah, I can see some huge successes there. Although I do have to admit, and my Gator friends will also too admit, that we never thought that Coach Mullen would be 6-1. I didn't see this being 6-1. I had them losing LSU all the way around the place, but I didn't think in our wildest dreams he'd be 6-1. Now the wheels could fall off. It could be, these are kids. If they lose to Georgia, it's going to put a damper on them, and it's up to Coach Mullen, and he's a psych guy. He can rally these kids up. They have to look down the road. They're probably not going to be in the 4 anymore, but they certainly have a high bowl. But Coach Mullen does wonders. He's a wonderful man. He's a wonderful coach, and Florida can only hope for a good rest of the year looking forward.
They're coming from Papa Joe inside of Papa Joe's Picks College Football Talk. Papa J, let's get to the other game that you mentioned, Clemson and Florida State. Clemson, as of right now, obviously is doing well. They've fought through some close ones. They survived against Syracuse at home and were able to win that game. And then I thought NC State would make it at least interesting, but they didn't do a darn thing. NC State lost 41-7 in Death Valley. So if if A equals B, B equals C, then A equals C, that would show that if Syracuse almost won in Clemson and NC State got blown out in Clemson, then Syracuse should defeat NC State inside the Carrier Dome this weekend if we go by the bouncing ball, so to speak. So Syracuse facing off against NC State after NC State lost. We'll get to that in a minute. But Clemson, they played against Furman and won against them. Then Dabo Swinney got to go up against Jimbo Fisher, this time at Texas A&M, won by 2. Took care of Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech, close with Syracuse, and then dismantled Wake Forest and NC State. Clemson has scored 104 points in the last 2 weeks while allowing 10. And on the other side of it, Florida State is in a place where they have pretty much lost one. They lost to Virginia Tech, beat Samford barely, lost to Syracuse, beat Northern Illinois and Louisville, lost to Miami, beat Wake Forest. So let's start with Clemson. Clemson, 104 points that they've scored, like I said, in the last 2 weeks. 10 they've given up. They've played very close against Syracuse, very close against Texas A&M. What do you think about Clemson?
Well, Clemson certainly at the beginning of the year was one of the teams. I think people were already assuming that just forget about the season, put Clemson again against Alabama and play for the national championship. It may turn out that way. But Clemson, see, Dabo Swinney, he's another clever guy. He's like Mullen. He's got all these little wrinkles that he thinks about, and he knows how to twist things around and everything. He handled a very, very delicate quarterback situation there and installed this freshman kid who most football people know was going to eventually start for Clemson. But this kid's awesome. He's tall, he's strong, whips the ball all over the place. Frankly, their win against NC State surprised me a little bit. NC State, you're right, just sort of laid down. You go to Death Valley. There's 2 Death Valleys college football. One's at Clemson and one's at LSU. And Clemson get awful out, too. That's probably what happened to them. Clemson is peaking at the right time. But they need to really, 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 really be careful this weekend. Florida State, if they'd have hung on against Miami, they would have won, 3 or 4 in a row or 5 in a row or something like that coming into this game. And frankly, I count that game at Miami as a win for Florida State. So, with that being said, going to Florida State and playing a Florida State team that's significantly better than the beginning of the year is a major concern for Dabo Swinney and his team. And look at, with all respect to Syracuse and the other teams, they're not going to face, Clemson's not going to face the kind of athletes that Florida State has, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So Trevor Lawrence, he's still a freshman, even though he's a heralded freshman, and has done remarkably well the last couple of weeks. You may see the old deer in the headlights when he lines up against Florida State's defense. They're mean, they're fast, they're quick. So this is a very dangerous game for Clemson.
And when we look on the other side of it with Florida State, like you said, the athletes are there. The athletes are supposed to be strong. The athletes are supposed to be agile. Their fourth stringer is supposed to be a starter anywhere else. That's always been the notion. Now, running the ball through 7 games, they only have 7 touchdowns. On the ground, DeAndre Francois has 2. Jacquez Patrick has 1. Amir Razul has 1, and Cam Akers has 3. Very uncharacteristic of this team. What can you say about, even though Florida State has, on paper, the athletes, their rushing attack has been quiet, and DeAndre Francois has 13 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. So they are on the right side of things. They did get to 4 wins to 3 losses. They are in a place right now where they're above 500, but their passing attack and their rushing attack definitely don't look like it typically does.
You're right. Cam Akers is starting to come around a little bit. But, one thing we have to realize is that Clemson's their front 4 defense are probably all going to be drafted in the first round of the NFL. They're older guys. They're seniors, fourth-year juniors. They're mean. They're big. They're strong. So, again, you look at the line of scrimmages when they start teeing off against each other. If Florida State winds up getting stuffed on 1- and 2-yard runs and things like that, you're going to have to see the game plan change from Coach Taggart. You have to get maybe Francois outside the pocket, move him around a little bit, but this is dangerous. Akers is a top-flight back. I wish Akers had come to Florida, but Florida has their own back. That's good. Akers is a strong running back. If he can't get going against the 4 of Clemson, it's going to change. It's going to change the whole face of the game.
Are you surprised that yes, Clemson is undefeated, but to me, they seem like they're not as scary this year. Are you surprised by that in the sense that they're in a place right now where they are in the college football playoff if it were to happen today, but in my opinion, and they have their front 4 have the opportunity of all being drafted potentially in the first round, if not the first and second rounds of the 2019 NFL draft. Does it surprise you at all that they have all of that in their arsenal, yet, at least for me, I feel like they're not as scary as they typically are?
Well, you could say that. Certainly there's a case for that. It's peaking, it's becoming the end of the year. Dabo Swinney will have his guys ready to play. They're certainly not as scary as they were last year, but, perhaps maybe we could say that the parity in the ACC and even in the SEC, the parity is becoming closer than not. The Big Ten, you could probably say that too, even though there's only 3 or 4 teams up there that actually count for anything. The ACC's always been strong. Perhaps maybe some of the teams are beginning to out-recruit Clemson and bring in some better kids, and the same could be said for the SEC. But the ACC is strong, and Clemson deserves to be mentioned in the team. They deserve to be there at the beginning of the year, even though they've had a few hiccups here coming this year, but they still deserve to be. They still deserve to be talked about. And frankly, even if they lose to Florida State, they still should be considered one of the top four.
And that coming from Papa Joe inside of Papa Joe's Picks, some respect for the Clemson Tigers. I think that, in the sense of the college football playoff, and that's what we're going to talk about right now here for a second, is that, at least in my opinion, I had this conversation with my dad yesterday, is that when I look at the college football playoff every year, unless something crazy happens, I always say Alabama has a spot, somebody else in the SEC has a spot, the ACC champion has a spot, and then there's a wild card. So even if Clemson isn't as pretty as they used to be, I think the ACC is, pretty much, in my opinion, guaranteed a slot to be in this thing. How do you see the college football playoff? Because I feel like Alabama can do almost no wrong in the eyes of the committee. And on top of that, I think that the committee likes the SEC, and I think the committee likes the ACC as well. And then I think the rest of it is a dogfight between the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Big 10.
Yeah, good point, a good question. It's probably going to come down to maybe the last couple of games of the year. I do want to say that the Big Ten possibly has a shot to get something in there. I think Ohio State, Michigan is going to be a super game to look at later on. Both of those teams should be considered. Wisconsin, even though they had a hiccup, they're still running and they're good. Penn State. It's hard to say what the committee's thinking. They look at strength of schedule, they look at the strength of the conference, and certainly they look at dollars. Look at the four teams that are going to play. They're all going to be top dollar schools. Every one of them. Their gross income. I looked at this yesterday. I looked up the top 25 earnings of the top schools. All of the SEC schools were in there except for two, and there were 7 from the ACC. That doesn't leave a lot of room for the rest of the teams, Ohio State and so on. So you're looking, from a financial standpoint, you're looking for those teams to make it. But competitive-wise, I don't know if Oklahoma could be mentioned in there. I mentioned Texas A&M earlier. I don't know how they could be qualified either from the SEC West. Oklahoma certainly should be considered. Their quarterback is Kyler Murray is just lighting things up. The West Coast, over here we don't get to see these guys that much. I don't see Washington or Oregon or USC, the rest of these teams. I really don't know what they're about. So I just concentrate on what I know about and what I read about in the East Coast. So I'm still looking at the 4 teams that are star powers that can be legitimately inserted in there because of one-loss records. And certainly Alabama and Clemson belong there.
That coming from Papa Joe inside of Papa Joe's Picks College Football Talk this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Papa J, before I let you go, let's hop in really quick here to the Jaguars before we make our college football picks for the week. I know we talked about it a little bit. Blake Bortles got benched last week. He was asked to take a seat at home on my birthday. Apparently, they didn't get the memo that it was my birthday, and and they lost the game 20-7 to a Texans team that barely won in Houston the week before against Buffalo, and needed to intercept the ball with under 2 minutes to go to win that game. So they win this one 20-7. The Jaguars have not been able to move the ball. The defense has given up 90 points in the last 3 weeks, and the offense has scored a mere 28 points, 7 points to the Cowboys, 7 points to the Texans, and 14 against the Chiefs. You and I have defended Blake Bortles since his institution into the NFL in 2014. I am struggling to defend him right now. Where do you stand?
Well, I still like him. I still think he's a big, tall, strong quarterback. Runs the ball when he has to. He makes all the throws. For some reason, things aren't computing for him lately. He's shown star power on some occasions, and then he just lays some eggs, like the last couple of games. I can't figure him out. Unfortunately for us, there's no one to throw in there. And I don't think that the Jaguar hierarchy are going to go out and find another quarterback. So they're going to have to go with Bortles. Mazzone's got to come up with something. He's got to come up with maybe a different game plan. Maybe Bortles is not thinking right. I mean, it's all between his heads. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he's got all the tools. For some reason, it's not computing for him. And subsequently, you wind up taking your butt, putting it on the bench.
And when we look at, the grand scheme of things, and obviously Blake Bortles is struggling and not doing what he needs to do to move the offense. But I've said repeatedly on this show, before we go and blame Blake Bortles for everything, let's look at this. Now, if you go and you look at the Jaguars' depth chart at the beginning of the season, this is how it currently reads. Quarterback, everybody's healthy. Running back, Leonard Fournette, doubtful for this game, has not played a full game all season in 7 games. Corey Grant, third stringer on injured reserve. Wide receiver, Marquise Lee on injured reserve. Jadon Mickens, injured reserve. First string tight end, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, injured reserve. Niles Paul, backup tight end, injured reserve. James O'Shaughnessy, questionable. Left tackle, Cam Robinson, starter, injured reserve. Backup, Josh Wells, injured reserve. Andrew Norwell, questionable. Brandon Linder, questionable. Jeremy Parnell, questionable, which leaves only one healthy offensive lineman in A.J. Cann at right guard, who's been injured this year as well. And behind Jeremy Parnell, Will Richardson on injured reserve. So I am seeing IR at every single position besides fullback, and that's pretty much it, quarterback. So when I read that off to you, Papa J, and you hear Leonard Fournette, Corey Grant, Marquise Lee, Jadon Mickens, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Niles Paul, Cam Robinson, Josh Wells, Will Richardson, and then a bunch of questionables. I mean, I know people want to get at Blake Bortles, but if you take a weapon away at every single piece of the game and you have almost 90% of his offensive line injured, I would venture to say that's a very hard task to be the quarterback of that team.
That's true. I mean, certainly we can't blame Bortles for everything, but his decision-making needs to come into question. With respect to the offensive line, it's up to the coaches and general managers. If you are real thin at these positions, then you better get your behind out there and find some players. Bring them in. Even if they compete at practice, and if you don't like him, let him go, and if you do, you let him play a little bit. But, if they need players, they need to go get them. I mean, if you got a franchise quarterback, even though he's as big as he is, if he gets flattened a couple of times, his behind's not going to get up off the ground, and then you're really stuck. So luckily he's as big and strong as he is, because if he gets nailed 5 or 6 times a game, sacked, and really hurt, then Jaguars are really in problem. So I agree with you on that. I think that's a good premise. But if the Jaguars feel that way, if they think that he is not the total problem, which he's not, then they need to go out and find some better offensive linemen. That's the way that you trade, or you scour the drop-off lines. You go to other guys' practice squads and sign someone off someone else's practice squad. But if they need the bodies, they need to go get them.
Well, and I think the biggest issue at left tackle is that's the blind side for your quarterback. And Cam Robinson, when he went out against the Patriots, Josh Wells filled in and did a pretty nice job from out of James Madison in his 5th season. And then when he got hurt, and now he's on injury reserve, they went and got Eric Flowers, who has been nothing for the New York Giants. And, so that's where these issues arise is, if it's slim pickings, you still got to be smart. I'd rather take a guy off a practice squad who's unproven than a guy like Eric Flowers who's proven to me that he can't play football in the NFL, at least right now. So, we're in a place where this team does need a lot of help. But I agree with you, Blake Bortles' decision-making, his fumbling, his interceptions and whatnot. So let's discuss that portion of it, Papa J. Who do they go out and get? Because I got a bunch of people telling me, every single day I have people saying to me, hey, Dan, because they know what I do for a living, they know me and whatnot. They say, you need to go get Eli Manning. You need to go get Derek Carr. The Raiders are having a yard sale and everybody's up for grabs, and Eli Manning is close to Tom Coughlin. What do you think? Is there anybody out there that you think is a viable solution?
No, they just need to sit tight. Kessler is an adequate backup. He proved that he could fling around, even though he completed mostly short passes. He didn't go down the field that much. That's the advantage with Bortles. He can air it out. I mean, he's got such a big arm that if he's got the wide receivers, he can still complete them. But yeah, to get back to Eric Flowers, I'm really, really surprised at his efforts. I don't understand how a guy that big, who was a first-round draft choice, could flame out like this. I don't get it. But a lot of the offense has problems. We know that. But one of the biggest problems that we need to discuss is Fournette. He hasn't played at all. I mean, I can't remember him playing a regular string of games last year or this year where the guy isn't hurt. I mean, you got to get him on the field to see what he can do. I mean, we know he can control the line of scrimmage and move the chains, but he could be too delicate for this game, as big and strong, as fast as he is. So I have a problem with Fournette also.
Well, and I understand the problem with Fournette wholeheartedly because, Leonard Fournette is one of those guys where, they obviously put a lot of eggs in the basket. They drafted him last year, and, this is something the Jaguars have already been through, been there, done that with Fred Taylor. Fred Taylor injured his hamstring, and he was never the same after that, as good as he was. And, now we're looking at Dalvin Cook with Minnesota, Leonard Fournette with Jacksonville, both drafted last year, and both being hampered by the hamstring. And if there's any injury besides tearing an ACL that's going to hold down a running back, it's the hamstring because it never seems to fully heal during the season. So, the Jaguars tried Jamal Charles for a half a second, let him go. Now they're going to try Carlos Hyde, who was doing a good job in Cleveland, and I'm surprised that Cleveland would let him go. So it'll be interesting to see, where things are at. Carlos Hyde's only spent about 5 seasons in the NFL, so there's some good that can come from that. And, we'll have to see where the Jaguars are at right now, as they will be in England as we move forward here, playing up against the Eagles. And they tend to do well there, and they tend to have a lot of fans there. So we'll see how the people across the pond are responding to Blake Bortles coming up this week. Papa J, before I let you go, let's do it really, really quick here. Let's give the people our picks. I'm going to run through a bunch of games, and you're going to tell me who you're picking. I'll tell you who I'm picking. So there's a bunch of games today. Thursday, October 25th, Baylor at West Virginia, Georgia Tech at Virginia Tech and whatnot. There's a bunch of games on Friday, Utah and UCLA, Indiana, Minnesota, Miami, Boston College, so on and so forth. But I'm going to key in on these. We mentioned Clemson and Florida State. We mentioned Florida and Georgia. So who are you picking for those two?
Well, it's redundant, but it pains me to say this, that Georgia is just a little bit too strong for Florida at this time. Next year could be a different story when Mullen's been here for longer than a year. But I don't see Florida. I don't see Florida winning this game. So I got to go with Georgia.
Yeah, for me, this is going to be tough. I would have to. I'm going to have to lean on the side of Georgia in this one. I mean, if Georgia loses, they're going to flounder out of this thing, and they got no chance. So I'm going to lean on the side of Georgia in this one, but I hope that Florida makes it interesting. Clemson and Florida State, could there be an upset?
Yes, absolutely, most definitely. And I'll guarantee you that Dabo Swinney had this game circled on in his lineup for many, many, many weeks ago. He knows the kind of athletes they got over there. Even though Taggart isn't maybe the top-of-flight coach that they should have over there, this is really, really, really dangerous. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't know, Daniel, you'll never probably ever hear me say this again. But I'm actually going to think that Florida State could win this game. I'm actually going to pick Florida State. Can you believe that?
Well, I think that Clemson's been ripe to lose a game. I think that it definitely could happen at some point. But I'm going to stay with Clemson on this one. I'm going to pick Clemson to win this game. I do think Clemson's been testing fate a little bit. They've been rolling the die a little bit, but I'm going to stick with Clemson in this one. We'll do a couple more really quick here. I want Kentucky, Missouri. Does Kentucky have any threat here on the road?
They better look it out. This is another Triplum game right here. If Kentucky wants to be held in the same class as Florida, Georgia, and so on in the SEC Eastern Conference, they need to win this game. Missouri is no pushover. Although I think Kentucky will win the game, not going to be easy.
I'm going to go with, see, this one's tough. I'm going to go Missouri at home. I'm going to pick Missouri, and then
We're 3 for 3. We've gone opposite 3 for 3.
we have, and if Missouri wins this game, then Florida's got a line to get there. Notre Dame versus Navy at the SDCCU Stadium in San Diego.
No, this is Navy likes to control the ball. They got that triple option. So if they control the line of scrimmage and rush for 400 yards, they'll probably win. But it's not going to happen. Notre Dame has too many athletes.
I'm going with Navy. I'm going to go with Navy. I'm going to go with Navy in this.
4 for 4.
I know. I'm going with Navy in this one. So either you're going to be right or I'm going to be right this week. The last one that we have, Papa J, NC State at Syracuse. Primetime game. The last time Syracuse had a primetime game on a Saturday in college football, I think I was 5 years old. So what do you think about this one, NC State-Syracuse?
Well, NC State got their ass handed to them last week, and I think things are going to change a lot. I'm not sure if Syracuse is going to start Dungy. I think their best option is to start Dungy because I think he's an NFL kind of quarterback, even though in the later rounds of that. I do think that NC State should prevail here.
I'm going to go with Syracuse. I think they become bowl eligible in this game, and then they got their 6 wins. They'll be 6-2 at the time, and all of a sudden they could be tied with a bunch of those teams that are at the top of the rankings with a record of 6-2. So I'm going with Syracuse, and that is Papa Joe. Papa Joe's picks. Papa J, we went 5 separate, so we'll see who's smart this week. I love you. I know. I love you to pieces, and I'll talk with you soon.
All right. Good night. Bye-bye.
Take care. That coming from Papa Joe. We're going to take a very, very quick fast break and come back with Katie Kalinske in just a moment.
This is a wake-up call fast break.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or ice milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. I'm hanging out here with Katie Kalinske. You know that she is with us every Thursday morning in the first hour of the show right after Papa Joe's pick. She's always a pleasure to have on the show, the consummate professional, 7 years under Jim Boeheim at Syracuse, and now in her first season as the director of basketball ops for Buffalo's women's basketball program. Katie, how are we doing today?
We're good. I'm excited to be here this week.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate having you here on the show. Katie, we are steps away from the college basketball season. How tangible is it? How real is it? How scary is it? As a director of basketball ops, where are you at right now?
I'm just trying to make sure, I have all our hotels this year and our buses, and, I'm starting to plan out foods and, shoot around time. But it's a little stressful, just making sure, everything is taken care of and I don't forget anything.
Is there anyone else that you can blame if you get to a city and you forgot and you misbooked the hotel by a day?
No, it'll definitely fall on me for sure.
So how has all that planning been to set all this stuff up? And going around the country and whatnot, and like you said, taking a bus instead of a plane everywhere. How crazy is all of that? And does it almost become like a labyrinth or like a jigsaw puzzle?
Yeah, what I'm most nervous about is taking a commercial flight because, I've never had to go through the airport like that before. So this is going to be a little different for me in making sure a whole team has their plane tickets and their names are spelled right and their birthdays are right and just making sure it's all correct. So I can't imagine if we got there and someone wasn't able to make the trip.
Well,
especially coach.
I know. That would be first thing on the news. Buffalo women's basketball team can't start can't start best player due to director of basketball ops forgetting passport or something like that.
I'm laughing, but it's really not that funny.
Obviously, I hope it doesn't happen to you, but you're in a situation though where you get to be a part of this, and it's something new, it's something intricate, it's something special. How much fun has it been to step into this new role and have this new opportunity?
Yeah, it's been a great experience. I'm at a really great place with a lot of great people, and we have a great team of players, and I'm just lucky to be able to learn from someone who's been in the business for 29 years. She has so much experience in all this stuff, so she's been kind of just leading the way for me as she does with everybody else.
And to shout out your coach, to let everybody know that doesn't know, to give them a little bit of background on your coach. Oh, Katie.
Coach.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Coach Jack, she, her being from Syracuse and just, leading the way for Buffalo, bringing them to the Sweet 16 last year. She was an assistant coach at Michigan State, Syracuse, head coach at Indiana, head coach at Hofstra. Born and raised in Syracuse. So we definitely have that Syracuse connection. She's one of a kind motivator, one of a kind coach, and to me, she's a legend.
Because she's connected to Syracuse and you're not that far away in Buffalo, does it almost feel like home even though it's not home?
Yeah, I've been to Syracuse a lot of the weekends, before the season started, and, like I said, I got to catch a men's practice, so I still get to, be involved with that, and I'm going to be home the weekend of November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and I'll probably catch a practice then, and, the guys start up their season tonight, which is so exciting. I don't think I'll be able to watch the game, I don't think it's on TV anywhere.
Yeah, so that's going to be weird for you to not have that connection, but like you said, you'll be able to come back and do some things which will be fun. On your side of it though, for Buffalo, you're traveling for the first game of the first regular season game. You're going to Maryland Eastern Shore, and then just 2 games later you're going to Oregon. You'll be going to Coastal Carolina, you'll be going to Central Connecticut, pardon me, and then you'll be going to places like Dayton and so on and so forth. So, Dayton because you were just there with Syracuse in the first 4, but, kind of bouncing around the country and going to places like Oregon and whatnot, just what you're excited about with that.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's funny because I was actually on the phone with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about it's going to be weird. Like, I'm not going to be in the ACC schools anymore. I'm not going to be going to the Louisvilles, the Virginias, the Dukes. I was like, this is really different for me. We're busing to Central Connecticut State, and with Syracuse, we didn't even really play that many away games before the start of the season. This year, we have only 3 home games non-conference, so it's going to be a lot different. In that aspect, it's just so many games we're traveling to before our conference season starts.
And being with this Buffalo team, what can you say about how they look in practice, how everything is going? This is, the Buffalo women's team and the men's team are both gaining respect in the here and now and in recent history. So just what you can say about, the hopes for this season and the look of the team right now.
Yeah, I think, we're young this season. We have 7 newcomers, but, I think they're adapting really well to our style of play. And, we do have some leadership on the team as well. So I think, once we put all the pieces together, I think, it could be another special season for sure.
Now, speaking of a special season, Kawhi Leonard.
I knew it. I knew you were about to start talking about the Raptors.
Well, I knew if I didn't, you were gonna, because I know you're a closet Raptors fan. So the Toronto Raptors and Kawhi Leonard have started out 5-0. Leonard had 35 points most recently, and the team is they're in good footing right now. They are 4-0 at home. They've only had to play 1 game on the road. What do you think about where the Toronto Raptors are to start off the season at 5-0 without DeMar DeRozan? And I ask you this because there's actually been some national coverage in America about this Toronto team. So just what do you think about it?
I think Kawhi definitely elevates the team as a whole, from his defense to his offense. By the way he carries himself. So I think they're just, and obviously they have a new head coach, and I'm not sure how much he has to do with it, but, we'll see. There's time is going to tell, if it was the right move or not. But right now it's looking pretty good, starting out 5-0.
And obviously players have changed, and LeBron's not with Cleveland anymore. But defeating the Cavaliers, the Celtics, and the Wizards is a nice way to start the season for Toronto fans who typically see those jerseys and get a little bit nervous. So there is some positive to that. What do you think about the teams they've defeated, namely the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, I just don't think Boston is where they need to be yet. You know, they haven't really played all together yet. So I think once they get together, I think it's going to still be Boston to come out the East. I know it's going to crush your soul, but
it's okay, Katie, if you disagree with me, because see, for me, I believe that sometimes when somebody thinks the team is going to lose, it's that positive reinforcement. You know what I mean? It's like I'm going to not pick them so that I can pick them. But here's the thing about Kawhi Leonard, and you and I have spoken about how he's a man of few words. He said after starting 5-0 and scoring 35 points, this was his quote: "We're on the right track. We've won every game so far, and we've just got to keep going." Probably the most bland you can get about anything at any point. So, and I think we lost Katie here for a second. Katie, are you with us? So we'll look to get Katie back here. Yep, we lost Katie. So we'll look to get Katie back here on the line. All right. Yeah. What I was saying was Kawhi Leonard, as we know, is a man of few words. And his quote after scoring 35 points in the most recent game and starting 5-0 was, quote, "We're on the right track. We've won every game so far, and we've just got to keep going," which I think that any person in America could realize that statement, realize that they've won every game so far and that they probably should continue to win. So what are your thoughts on the massive, deep, and thoughtful analysis of Kawhi Leonard?
I personally love it because he's just himself, and he's never going to be anything he isn't. So, I mean, I like it. I think it adds character to him.
That coming from Katie Kalinsky. Katie, as always, I appreciate it. Happy that we got you on for a few minutes, and happy that we were able to, outside of college basketball, get into the Raptors, because I know that you've just been desperate to talk about it. So I appreciate it, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
All right, Dan. Sounds good. Have a good one.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye. That coming from Katie Kalinsky. We're going to take a fast break, and in the second hour of the show, get your pens and pads ready. The Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub and the Pen and Trophy Center, with myself and Mike Sofka. Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Myself of WakeUpCallDT.com's Fantasy Football page is here with you today to bring you some amazing, amazing content when it comes to preparing for Week 8 in the NFL and fantasy football.
This is a wake-up call, Fast Break.
News is spreading in historic Herald Square about Syracuse's favorite sports and entertainment venue, the Press Room Pub, with lots of room next to 450 parking spots. Wash down their delicious 9-ounce burger for $9.95 with a variety of New York State brewed beers. TVs abound all throughout the location, including their 90-inch monster. Watch your game, enjoy time with family, friends, as well as bringing the kids to the playroom. The SU Alumni Party for every away football game is making headlines, as well as Robert Drummond, Syracuse football alum, and Dan Tortora's pregame show 2 hours before kickoff for every home game. Private parties available as well for as many as 300 people. Come circulate at the Press Room Pub, downtown Syracuse, and visit PressRoomPub.com right now for more information.
Clothing that will change with you without you having to change. DreisigLady.com, DREISSIG Lady.com. With the Bamboo line Relaxed Fit clothing as well as the Athletic Fit clothing, DreisigLady.com is fit for any woman, any time of the day, anywhere. Whatever you're doing, whatever your day commands of you, command yourself to feel comfortable in Dreisig Lady apparel. DREISSIG Lady.com. lady.com. For all the women out there, feel good in what you're wearing. And don't feel like you have to constantly change throughout the day. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, going for a jog, going for a meeting, or just relaxing at home, DreisigLady.com is the right fit for you. DREISSIG lady.com.
This is Lawrence Papaleo, licensed real estate salesperson for Gilbo Realty. Call our home office at 315-752-9513, or better yet, call or text me directly at 315-748-2524.
Let me ask you a question, Lawrence. If I needed you to help me buy a house, find the right place, could you help me do that?
Joe, I'll help you find your dream home.
You don't ever say my name on the radio, never. If I needed to sell a house, could you help me go about that the right way?
Yes, I can.
How do they get a hold of you?
Call me directly at 315-748-2524.
But you also do the commercial property. So if I got a business, couple businesses, got to take one here, move it over there, do this, do that, are you going to help me buy and sell my commercial property also?
Yes, sir.
I like that. What's my name again?
I have no idea.
Absolutely, but they need to know your name, so give it one more time.
This is Lawrence Papaleo, licensed real estate salesperson for Gilbo Realty. My phone number is 315-748-2524.
Why don't you tell them your name one more time and that number so we can jot it down?
This is Lawrence Papaleo. Call me or text me directly at 315-748-2524.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
For all of us that have always wanted our favorite restaurant to come to us, it's now a reality in Central New York with It's a Utica Thing, with Utica Pizza Company bringing their wonderful recipes that they've handed down through generations to you, to your event, to your business, to your home. It's a Utica Thing, proudly bringing Utica Pizza Company on wheels to your location. Call 315-738-8946. That's 315-738-8946 to bring Utica Pizza Company to your doorstep with It's a Utica Thing.
That coming from Papa Joe as well as Katie Kalinsky. Make sure you stay tuned to Fantasy Football in just a moment on the next piece of this broadcast.